Now it remains to show that the distinction of things did not proceed from the different movements of the free will of rational creatures. As Origen put it in the book Periarchon, for desiring to resist the objections and errors of the ancient heretics, who endeavored to show that there is a different nature of good and evil in things from opposite agents, because of the great distance found both in natural things and in human things, which no merits seem to have preceded, namely, that certain bodies are luminous, some are obscure, some men are born of barbarians, some of Christians. He was compelled to postulate that all the diversity found in things proceeded from the diversity of merits, according to the justice of God. For he says that God, from his goodness alone, first produced all creatures equal, and all spiritual and rational, which are moved by free will in different ways, some adhering to God more or less, some withdrawing from him more or less, and according to this different degrees in spiritual substances were followed by divine justice, so that some were angels according to different orders, some also according to different states of the human soul, and some even demons in different states. And because of the diversity of rational creatures, he said that God had instituted the diversity of corporeal creatures, so that nobler bodies would be joined to nobler spiritual substances, so that in different ways the corporeal creature might serve the diversity of spiritual substances in any other way, some receding from him more or less, and according to this different degrees in spiritual substances were followed by divine justice, so that some were angels according to different orders, some also according to different states of the human soul, and some even demons in different states. And because of the diversity of rational creatures, he said that God had instituted the diversity of corporeal creatures, so that nobler bodies would be joined to nobler spiritual substances, so that in different ways the corporeal creature might serve the diversity of spiritual substances in any other way, some receding from him more or less. And according to this different degrees in spiritual substances were followed by divine justice, so that some were angels according to different orders, some also according to different states of the human soul, and some even demons in different states. And because of the diversity of rational creatures, he said that God had instituted the diversity of corporeal creatures, so that nobler bodies would be joined to nobler spiritual substances, so that in different ways the corporeal creature might serve the diversity of spiritual substances in any other way, some also demons in different states. And because of the diversity of rational creatures, he said that God had instituted the diversity of corporeal creatures, so that nobler bodies would be joined to nobler spiritual substances, so that in different ways the corporeal creature might serve the diversity of spiritual substances in any other way, some also demons in different states. And because of the diversity of rational creatures, he said that God had instituted the diversity of corporeal creatures, so that nobler bodies would be joined to nobler spiritual substances, so that in different ways the corporeal creature might serve the diversity of spiritual substances in any other way. But this opinion is clearly convinced that it is false, for to the extent that something is better in effects, so much is it prior to the intention of the agent. But the best thing in created things is the perfection of the whole, which consists in the order of distinct things. For in all things the perfection of the whole precedes the perfection of the individual parts. Therefore, the diversity of things arises from the main intention of the first agent, not from the diversity of merits. Still, if all rational creatures were created equal from the beginning, it must be said that one of them did not depend in its operation on another. But what results from the concurrence of different causes, one of which does not depend on the other, is accidental. Therefore, according to the aforesaid position, such a distinction and order of things is accidental. This is impossible, as was shown above. Further, what is natural to a person is not acquired by him through the will, for the movement of the will, or free will, presupposes the existence of the willing, to which his natural properties are required. If therefore a different degree of rational creatures has been acquired through the movement of free will, no rational creature will have its natural but accidental degree. But this is impossible, for since there is a specific difference natural to each, it follows that all created rational substances are of one species, namely angels, demons, and human souls, and the souls of heavenly bodies, which Origen posited as animate. And the diversity of natural actions declares that this is false, for it is not the same way in which the human intellect naturally understands, which needs sense and imagination, and the angelic intellect and the soul of the Son, unless perhaps we imagine that angels and celestial bodies have bodies of flesh and bones and other such parts, so that they can have organs of sense, which is absurd. It remains, therefore, that the diversity of intellectual substances does not result from the diversity of merits, which are according to the movements of free will. Still, if those things which are natural are not acquired by the movement of free will, and the union of the rational soul with such a body is acquired by virtue of previous merit or demerit, according to the motion of free will, it follows that the union of this soul with this body is not natural. Therefore neither is the compound natural. But man and the sun, according to Origen, and the stars are composed of rational substances and such bodies. Therefore all such things, which are the most noble among corporeal substances, are unnatural. Again, if it does not befit this rational substance in so far as it is such a substance to be united to this body, but rather in so far as its merits are such, it is not to be united to this body per se, but accidentally. But from those which are united by accident, no species results, because they do not become one by themselves. For there is no species of a white man or a clothed man. It therefore remains that man is not a species, neither the sun nor the moon nor anything of the sort. Further, those things which lead to merits can be changed for the better or for the worse. For merits and demerits can be increased or decreased, and especially according to Origen, who said that the free will of any creature is always flexible in both directions. If therefore the rational soul obtained this body because of previous merit or demerit, it will follow that it can be united again to another body, and not only that the human soul assumes another human body, but also that it sometimes assumes a sidereal body, which is, according to the Pythagorean fables, to enter any soul into any body. And this also appears to be erroneous, according to philosophy, according to which determinate materials and determinate movables are assigned to determinate forms and motions, and according to heretical belief. In addition, since multitude cannot exist without diversity, if there were from the beginning rational creatures constituted in a certain multitude, it was necessary for them to have some diversity. Therefore, one of them had something that the other did not have. And so this does not proceed from a diversity of merit, nor was it necessary that a diversity of degrees should proceed from a diversity of merits. Again, every distinction is either according to the division of quantity, which is only in bodies, whence, according to Origen, it could not be in the first created substances, or according to formal division, which cannot exist without a diversity of degrees, when such a division is reduced to privation and form, and so it is necessary that one of the shared forms be better and the other cheaper. Hence, according to the Philosopher, the species of things are like numbers, one of which adds to or diminishes the other. Therefore, if there were many rational substances created from the beginning, there must have been a diversity of degrees in them. Again, if rational creatures can subsist without bodies, it was not necessary, on account of the different merits of rational creatures, to institute a diversity in corporeal nature. For even without a diversity of bodies, different degrees could be found in rational substances. But if rational creatures cannot exist without bodies, then from the beginning, a corporeal creature was instituted together with a rational creature. Now the distance between a corporeal creature and a spiritual one is greater than that of spiritual creatures from each other. If, therefore, from the beginning God instituted such a great distance in his creatures without any previous merits, it was not necessary for different merits to precede the establishment of rational creatures in different degrees. Still, if the diversity of the corporeal creature corresponds to the diversity of the rational creature, the uniformity of the corporeal nature would correspond to the uniformity of the rational creatures. Corporeal nature would therefore have been created, even if the different merits of the rational creature had not preceded it, but a uniform one. The first matter, which is common to all bodies, was therefore created but under only one form. But there are many forms in power. It would therefore have remained incomplete, only one of its forms reduced to action. This is not appropriate to divine goodness. Again, if the diversity of the corporeal creature follows the different movements of the free will of the rational creature, it will be necessary to say that the reason why there is only one sun in the world is because only one rational creature was so moved by free will that it deserved to be attached to such a body. And this was by chance that only one should sin in this way. It is therefore by chance that there is one sun in the world, and not by necessity of the corporeal nature. In addition, since a spiritual creature does not deserve to descend except through sin, but it descends from its sublimity, in which it is indivisible through the fact that it is united to visible bodies, it seems to follow that visible bodies are joined to them because of sin. This seems to be close to the error of the Manichaeans, who asserted that these visions proceeded from a bad beginning. The authority of the Holy Scriptures manifestly contradicts this opinion, because in each of the works of visible creatures Moses uses such a way of speaking, God seeing that there was good, and so on. And afterwards of all together he adds, God saw all that he had made, and they were very good. From which it is plainly understood that corporeal and visible creatures were made because it is good to be them, which is in harmony with the divine goodness, and not because of any merits or sins of rational creatures. But it seems that Origen did not consider that when we give something not out of debt but liberally, it is not against justice if we give unequally, with no difference of merit weighed, since retribution is due to those who deserve it. But God, as was shown above, brought things into being out of no debt, but out of mere liberality. Hence the diversity of creatures does not presuppose diversity of merits. Again, since the good of the whole is better than the good of the individual parts, it is not the best of the builder to diminish the good of the whole, in order to increase the goodness of some parts. For the builder does not give to the foundation that goodness which he gives to the roof, lest he make the house ruinous. Therefore the maker of all things, God, would not make the whole universe the best in its kind, if he made all parts equal, because many degrees of goodness would be lacking in the universe, and thus it would be imperfect.